It is a cold February day, but the good news is that we don't pay attention to the weather here in the Prose Garden. Great writing is always in full bloom, just as if it were a gorgeous day in May. Welcome to the Prose Garden. I'm Francine Witte in New York City, and my fellow host is Meg Pokrass in the UK. And together, we have put together a great lineup of readers for you to enjoy. And as always, Meg and I are most grateful to all of you who are here and to all of you listening later on the replay. Meg and I always like to start the Prose Garden readings by breaking the ice. So I'm going to read two pieces and then I will turn it over to Meg to read hers. The first piece is called Snout Face. Not now, but soon I will be leaving Busby's whose eyes are dark marbles, whose eyes don't meet mine anymore. His face is long like a bear face, his mouth wide and gaping like he could swallow a salmon whole. Soon it will be the barren season, dry and famine, like a town up north where starving polar bears invade, just clomping down Main Street, nosing into garbage cans, and the people adjust by leaving their car doors open for pedestrians to dive into. No one blames a bear for being a bear, so I can't blame Busby for being Busby. I knew he was snort and prowl when I met him. Now, I leave my heart open so he can dive in anytime, like when he's lost another job because his boss was a dick or some other Busby logic. But soon, not now, not today, I will get tired of it all. Tired of being flipped and flapped in Busby's snout mouth. I will restart myself in forage mode, adapt myself for a long, hungry winter, curl up in the hand of my own empty heart. And then I'm going to read something a little bit longer. It's called it's a Wordle story. And when everybody got like really in trance by Wordle a few years ago, I said, "Oh, I'm going to take my Wordle and use it as a prompt." And that's what I did. So I took the 5 words. Wordle is when you have to create a 5-letter word and you guess it by putting in letters until you find the one that matches. And I imagine most of you do Wordle or have done Wordle. So there's a start word, and then it highlights the letters that matched, and then you go on from there. So this was an actual Wordle that I did, and it's called Radio to Knoll, and each section is the corresponding word. Okay, so radio. Again, I wake up to adult contempo, Taylor Swift eking into my dreams. Why can't I grow up? I say out loud to my husband, who is already in the shower, steady thrush of water. He doesn't need an alarm. Love, he says, is what jets him out of bed. I want to think he means love of his morning coffee. We preset the Keurig the night before, and it waits for him all beanie and steamy and eye pop. I want to think he means love of the crisp iron shirt he will put on, how the starchy smell makes everything seem new again. I want to think this is what he meant by love. I know that's not what he means. Opine. I'm up now. My husband sits across from me at the breakfast table, the morning paper spread out in front of him. He is eating his frozen waffles he likes so much, jelly, no butter. He says he likes a burst of fruit. He opines on the paper, stocks and murders, murders and stocks. He never mentions his secret girlfriend, which is really all I want to know about. I want him to opine on the length of her hair, the color. Is there a burst of anything when he kisses her? Does touching her breast make him feel like new, like an iron shirt makes him feel new? Knots. Eddie who is not my husband, has been teaching me to tie knots. Says it's a useful and undertaught skill. He says, you wait. One day when you least expect it, you will want to tie something and make sure it's tight as can be. Eddie, who is not my husband, always smells like musk and sex he didn't shower off. I would breathe him all day if I could. Knock. My husband has taken to knocking on the door whenever he enters a room, even if the door is open. He does that thing where he says, knock, 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 while rapping on the door jamb. Knock, knock, he will say, like I don't see his starchy, lying, fruit-filled self standing there waiting for me to acknowledge. Like he maybe wants me to reboot. Maybe he wants to reboot me like a computer and start over where he and I meet for the first time. And he would have to make sure that I know he's there before he shatters me into 1,000 pieces. Known. It is not exactly known where and when my husband ran off with his girlfriend. I know there's a half jar of jelly left over, so it's been since then. The where is another story. Eddie, who is not my husband, is sitting now at the foot of the bed. He says if I had known how to tie a knot, I could have secured my husband, maybe to an armchair, maybe to the breakfast table. He says people make the same mistake about other people, that they will be exactly where you left them. Eddie, who is not my husband, still smells of sex he didn't shower off. He is naked right there, right then. He crawls towards me with a silky scarf between his teeth. No. Definition. A hillock, a mound, most likely green and grassy, most likely peaceful, most likely a really good metaphor for love if you lean that kind of way, to make everything a metaphor, like years pushed all together, and it only adds up to a mound instead of the mountain you were counting on. A wide open field with a small bump of soil, and there you are knowing all the knots in the goddamn world with nothing tall enough or sturdy enough to tie anything to. Okay, thank you so much. Now I'm going to turn it over to my lovely fellow host, Meg Pokrass.
Thank you so much, Francine. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to read a story that was published in Fractured Lit in 2024 and was nominated for a Pushcart Prize. It's called Horse Broken, and it's also in sections. Horse Broken. Handcuffs. On the way to see our boy in the detention center, I was wearing invisible handcuffs. Don't try to make them like you this time, my husband said. He was talking about the guards. The bus lurched and my lunch wanted to become free of its cage. A sense of humor was what I once loved about him, and now, anytime I made a joke, it shocked him. The bus was our chapel. We grew silent because we didn't want anyone else to hear us. There were other parents on the bus. Every time we wound up on that road, we were on the way to see our son, who used to love staring at horses in the fields. Horse. When our son was younger, he wanted to be a horse. I don't want to be the kind that lives behind a wire fence, he said. I want to be the kind that knows where it belongs. We didn't know things then, and our hearts were broken every day. We couldn't afford what we wanted for him. It was the year my husband and I lost our jobs, and the neighbor's car backed over my foot, and our son said he didn't want to ride to school anymore without a horse. Every day he wore a uniform, the same sweatshirt and hood. When teachers demanded to see his face, they said, "That hood comes off or you don't come back tomorrow." Uniform. My uniform was a pair of jeans and a David Bowie t-shirt my old best friend gave me before she stopped calling, and because I didn't pick up the phone, even though it would have done me some good. There was a secret chapel I handcuffed myself to at night, and I talked to the bones of my foot, and I asked the foot to please behave like a limb again. It's not like you're always going to be broken in two, I said, and then laughed at myself because what kind of a mother talked to her foot in the dark? Wire fence. After they caged our son, my husband erected a real wire fence around the front yard as a way to ward off more unseen problems. That's a bit extreme, I said, but now he seemed to believe in doing whatever it took to make things right. He bought a pair of handcuffs from a sex catalog, and we tried them out one night, hoping to bring sex back into our lives and knowing that we couldn't be overheard. All I'm asking tonight is that you stop acting heartbroken, he said. I tried to feel slippery and young for him, but it wasn't happening. Finally, he unlocked me, and we lay in bed naked, staring at the ceiling. Let's just stop worrying, I said. Us worry, he said, because sometimes he had the old sense of humor back. Chapel. They had our son in the detention center because he broke into a riding equipment store, stolen a number of saddles and bridles, and left his fingerprints everywhere. And when the police came out, he blew air out of his lips like an angry horse. On the bus, my husband and I talked about how this was a temporary condition that all of us had fallen into. Like a curse after the car ran over my foot, I said, and meant it. There was a small chapel at the detention center, but none of the parents were ever in it. We were trying to remember the type of horse our son liked best. The type with freckles on its back, I think, I said. We couldn't remember the breed of this horse. The roads were wet, and the bus driver was trying to break the ice. Slippery day, folks, he said. Heartbroken. In the chapel, we sat there feeling heartbroken, and then suddenly we both started to laugh. About time, I thought, but didn't say. It was a tiny, damp outbuilding with only 6 pews. I doubt God is hanging around here much, my husband giggled with wetness in the corner of his eyes. I imagined presenting our son with a spotted horse. He would smile at me like the child he once was. He would ride into the future, and we would wave as if to say, "We'll miss you, but we know you'll do great and you'll come back happy." Slippery. The day he was released, we went home on the bus, my son's suitcase next to us on its side. He was quiet as we rode past the farms, and he didn't look out the window. "There are your horses," I wanted to say, as he stared at my extra large shoe. I stared at his eyes as if they were caught there. "The walking's going a bit better," I lied, because I still used a cane. He no longer had on a hood, and his bare head looked too tender without it. I said, "We have a surprise for you waiting at home." This was true. We'd rescued a dog found in the field near our house. We thought it might help all of us, even if the road remained potholed. My son kissed me on the forehead as if I were his freckled horse, as if, for the first time, he felt he could talk to me about the accident. "Mom, I prayed for you in that stupid chapel," he said, as if we had always been handcuffed to each other, but it felt good. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Meg. And I guess all the ice is broken now.
Yeah. I'll turn it back to
Wonderful.
Francine. Yes. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, I'll put us all on speaker view now. Okay, so let us begin with our invited readers. And we have a great lineup today. We're going to start with Elan Barnahama. He has published 2 novels, Escape Route and Finding Bluefield. His flash fiction collection is forthcoming in January 2026 from Poets Wear Prada. His writing has appeared in numerous publications, including Paris Lit Up, 10 by 10 Flash Fiction, Book City, Jewish Fiction, Drunk Monkeys, Synchronized, Chaos, Rough Cut Press, Boston Accent, Red Fez, Syncopation Lit, HuffPost, Public Radio, and more. Elan Barnahama.
Thanks. I'm actually going to read a story from Synchronized Chaos that came out last year, and it's called Birthday Pie. 3 decades had passed since Ben last entered the Empress Diner. During those years, when he returned to Brooklyn, it was to see his parents, and they always preferred to eat at home. Ben preferred diners over restaurants, and the Empress was his favorite growing up. Restaurants were for occasions, weddings, anniversaries, divorces, birthdays, deaths, engagements, breakups, and graduations, promotions. Diners were for every day, everyone from everywhere eating together. They were for people with places to go and for those with nowhere to be. Diners were a respite from the harsh world, and even if you ate alone. Which was what Ben was doing by himself in a booth with 2 plates of pie, 1 apple, 1 blueberry, and 1 cup of coffee. He removed a tiny candle from his jacket pocket and pushed it into the slice of blueberry pie. That's just sad, a woman said, taking off her sunglasses. Ben looked up. Sorry, the page just skipped. Ben looked up and as Ben looked up as his memory searched for a name to match the vaguely familiar face. Hi, Ben, she said. Michelle? You finally got there, Michelle said. It's been a long time, Ben said, and I don't get back here very often. Back from where, she asked. In high school, Ben had sat next to Michelle in both Trig and Calc. Santa Monica. And you made a trip all the way here for your birthday to sit alone at the Empress with not one but two slices of pie, Michelle said, and pie, not even cake? I don't like cake, Ben said. Who doesn't like cake, Michelle asked. And it's not my birthday. So you always light a candle when you eat pie. I haven't lit it yet, Ben said. Don't let me stop you, Michelle said as she sat down. Ben lit the candle. Do we blow it out now, she asked. We leave it alone, he said. We don't eat the pie. The waitress came over and Michelle ordered a grilled cheese and fries. We sat next to each other for 2 years and you barely talked to me, she said. High school was not fun for everyone, Ben said. You and your friends seemed to have a lot of fun. You were always laughing and joking about something. What was your thing back then? You were always carrying around some book. You remember that, he said? Jack Kerouac on the Road. It was my Bible. I was more of a deadhead, Michelle said. Let's not do that whole reminiscing glory days, Ben said. It's like looking for ghosts. Okay, Michelle said, but ghosts are real. What brings you back home? My mom died, Ben said. I'm sorry. Ben took a bite of apple pie. And how's your dad, she asked. He died 3 years ago. Are you having a service for your mom? She asked as the waitress brought her food and refilled their coffees. We did 2 days ago, Ben said. I'm in the sorting and tossing out phase so I can sell the house. Is that hard? Both my parents are still living. It's quite weird, Ben said, and there's a lot of stuff. I have to find a place that will take all that stuff. Do those things have a lot of memories? The memories are always there, Ben said, but I don't get attached to things. Things don't really care. So you'll be around for a while, she asked. There's a lot of stuff. Is the candle for your mom? The candle had burned all the way down to the crust where the flame went out. You ask a lot of questions, Ben said. It's really not your birthday? It's my sister's. Didn't your sister die when we were in high school? If you remember that, then you remember that Emma killed herself, Ben said. I do, and I remember trying to get you to talk to me about it, and you just became even more distant, something I didn't think was possible. I was told that I did not take her death well, Ben said. And why would you, Michelle asked. There were those who insisted that I should. Like who? The school psychologist, for one, Ben said. She talked my parents into sending me to a shrink. I didn't want to add to my parents' grief, so I agreed. But I insisted on seeing someone in Manhattan. I wanted to be sure that I would never run into them in Queens. Did it help, Michelle asked. Did the therapy help? It did not, Ben said. Do you do this thing with the candle every year? This is starting to feel a bit like an interview, Ben said. Do you get interviewed a lot, Michelle asked. I do not. This is how people get to know each other, Michelle said. Is that what we're doing? Why didn't therapy go well, Michelle asked. Because as therapist, all he did was sit there and listen to me lie and never said a word. Did you stop lying, Michelle asked. No, I stopped going, Ben said. Were your parents upset? I didn't tell them. They had enough to deal with. I took all the cash they gave me every week and put it in a bank. Your turn. What's your story? Ben speared a piece of apple pie and faced Michelle with a full mouth. I don't have one, she said. Everyone has one, Ben said. After we graduated, I went to school in the city, Hunter College, and then NYU Law. I'm a partner at a firm that does criminal law, and I still live in Queens. I've been divorced for 5 years, and I've been sober for 5 years and 10 months. That last part, Ben said, with the specific dates, there's a story there. Not a very original one, more of a cliche, Michelle said. Pills or drinking, he asked. Both, but mostly pills. Michelle said, chewing on some French fries. I guess it didn't stop you from making partner. I hid it well, she said. What did you do with all the money? I used it to move to LA after high school, Ben said. And what did you do when you got there? I was always using video cameras and making movies with my friends, and not a lot of people had that experience back then. so it was easy to get a job operating cameras. Did you work in movies, she asked. At first, and then television and later sports. I worked for ABC and traveled around the world, and I loved it. I worked nonstop for a long time, saved a lot of money, and quit. So you're happy, Michelle said. That's not something I worry too much about or think too much about. You don't? She asked. Do you? All the time, she said. I'd rather focus on things that interest me, Ben said. We become so obsessed with happiness that we turn unhappiness into a fatal flaw, a character deficiency. That's crap, Michelle said. I'll tell you why tonight, and then I'll tell you why ghosts are real, and then you'll tell me about all those things that interest you. Tonight, Ben said. Tonight, Michelle stood. She placed $10 on the table. I need to go now, but you should come out with me tonight. I have to make an appearance at a party of a colleague who just made partner at my firm. We'll pass by, and if you hate it, and you will hate it, I'll buy you dinner. I don't see that happening, Ben said. You'll have fun, Michelle said. I'll meet you by the subway on Continental at 7:30, and then after that, and after I leave, you'll realize that this is something you'd want to do, and I might be something that interests you. Michelle turned and left the diner. Thank you.
Thank you, Elan. That was great. I grew up in Queens, so I was right there with you. Great story. Thank you for being here in the Prose Garden. Elan Barnahama. Feel free to list anything you want in the chat. And people, if you just want to just respond to things in the chat, that's great. We'd love to see that. Okay, our next reader is Chelsea Stickle. She's the author of the flash fiction chapbooks Everything's Changing, 30 West Publishing House 2023, and Breaking Points, Black Lawrence Press 2021. She lives in Annapolis, Maryland, with her Black Rabbit George. Read more at chelseastickle.com. Chelsea Stickle.
Thank you, Francine, and thank you for asking me to read in the Prose Garden again. I'm really excited to be here. I'll be reading 2 stories today. The first was in Cotton Xenomorph last year. It's called In the Modern Retelling of Cassandra, You're Queer and Autistic. In the modern retelling of Cassandra, you're queer and autistic. Your friend's boyfriend says, you know how she is. When you say you don't, he sketches an emotional mess who strikes like a snake. But you know your friend, and you know how to identify a snake, have classification books and everything. And this boyfriend with his dry skin and bald head, he's a pit viper, very common in Maryland. They tell the truth about themselves by placing it on others. Don't handle, don't approach. Fleeing is the only option. The Super Bowl plays in the background, and suddenly everyone around the television can't hear him. They don't understand the game. They're not speaking to each other either, simply sitting in silence, ignoring what's playing out. An abuser attempting to plant seeds of doubt. But you're autistic and you know better. Societal norms don't blindfold you. You're arrow ace and don't get blinded by crushes or lust. You can appraise him, see through the human skin to the snake underneath, and offer a small smile. Anything less places you in danger. He cannot know that you know about the mice he swallows whole, slinking down his thin 4-foot body, the lump struggling to get free until the life is choked out of it. Later, when you ask the friend sitting next to you what she heard that night, she can't remember what he said, agrees that what you repeated is troubling, and promptly forgets. And that's an improvement. For a second, you're believed. You can tell everyone the truth, the facts, the future, all you want. But no one can remember. No one wants to remember. Few believe the people they love can hurt them until they're already bleeding. You stand there cursed to be disbelieved and ignored, alone because blindfolds and earplugs don't work on you. Always observing and never participating because what would you even do? Nothing works. Your friends fall one by one. Helpless, you tell their stories, hoping someone will hear you. Your words echo out into the still silence that envelops everyone as they slide down the throats of Maryland's most common snake. In the end, all that's left are the bones. So the next story I'm going to read, the last story I'm going to read, is a micro that was in Identity Theory last year and was selected for Best Microfiction. It's called Our First Night Together. Our first night together. My lover presses his thumbs against the spine of a snap pea until it splits so he can fish out the peas inside. His mammoth hands, the ones that have completed surgeries, are operating at my table. Crack, crack, crack. This is how we eat them at home. His eyes widen. I once ate 10 pounds in one sitting. I laugh and imagine the size of that pile, the number of bowls involved. With him, I'm trying new things. I'm living more in the moment, so I mirror his movements. The peas are sweeter than any vegetable has a right to be. This is his world. Sweetness that comes from the earth. Except they're bigger inside. Sugar peas? Sweet peas? Sweet peas, I answer, remembering the Bath and Body Works label of my youth, and pop more into my mouth. They're sweet, sure, but I like the way the pods mediate the flavor. It's more complex. Crack, crack, crack. He's not interested in the pods, and all I can think about is waste. Without his hands or mouth on me, I'm working equations to see how we fit. He distracts me with another story about home. I bite into an empty pod. A little boring without the peas, but still a solid stand-up flavor. Pure chlorophyll. Better together, though. Nature and its wisdom pairing them. The sweet and the solid. Crack, crack, crack. The pods pile up on my lover's plate. He offers to feed them to my bunny, disappear them inside him. I say, maybe later, when I mean no, because no would involve explanations he doesn't actually care about. What he wants is for me to finish eating so we can go back to what we were doing before both our stomachs grumbled in protest until they were a soundtrack we couldn't ignore. But I'm not sure what I want. So I grab another empty pod and bite down. Snap. Thank you.
Wow. Just so powerful and so vivid and great reading too, Chelsea. Thank you so much. Chelsea Stickle got some great comments there in the chat. So sure. Thank you for being here at the Prose Garden today, Chelsea. So we have not only a great lineup of readers, we have some great people here in the Zoom room. I just want to give them a little shout out, as I always like to do. And we have such great flash writers today. I'm so grateful, as I'm sure Meg is. We have Rena Palumbo, Patricia Bedard, Luke Lester, Gloria Mindock, Christine H. Chen, Carrie Langan, Joanna Tice, Valerie Fox, Jeff Harvey, Joan Leota, Connie Cartledge, Andrea Marcusa, Trina Droder, B. Knightley, James Hamilton, Jessica Klimish, Mileva Anastasia Dew, Shweta Amit, and Wanda Lester. And I apologize if I left anyone out. But welcome and thank you for being here because we know you could be doing something else, So we're very well aware of that and we're very grateful that you're here. So next reader is Kalliopy Paleos, who studied contemporary American poetry at SUNY Brockport. She recently completed her third full-length novel translation from Greek. Poetry publications include pieces in Mediterranean Poetry and Gnashing Teeth Press. Her prose has been included in Aragon Magazine for Greek American Arts and Letters, the Ekphrastic Review, Flash Boulevard, and is also forthcoming in the Mackinac Journal of Prose Poetry. Kalliopy Paleos.
Hi, everyone. I'm putting the link for what I'm reading in the chat there. It does go back and forth a little bit in time, so I know sometimes people like to follow. And I do want to say a huge, enormous thank you to Meg and Francine for running this beautiful series, and it's lovely, lovely to be here. So I'm going to get started. It's called Carpathian Suite, and it came out in Aragon Greek American Letters last year. Carpathian Suite. Cousins, summer 1974. Ours is a village of teeth. We see it from the dimly lit ferry, mountains dark in silver night clouds. Stone hovels clenched together in gray-green brush against gnashing wind. Between them, narrow switchbacks too steep for the older mules to climb, cut into the earth. Two can't walk abreast, and we plod forward in the morning heat, glossy hair chewed ragged, braided with salt. Empty windmills groan on bare crests of land. Resurrection Mass, 1919. Marriages for firstborn girls. Not Marukla, the fourth of five, sickly, brittle-boned. No room for her to sleep on the wooden soufas with its carved railing and 3 steps chiseled with flowers and birds and vines. Marukla sleeps below with the 1 mule, the 2 sheep, and the 3 goats. We need more of them than you, mother often laughs without smiling. Tend them well. The firstborn wore her vermilion brocade sacofustano to Saturday evening mass, hand-stitched by mother all the dark winter. Her breast sparkled with dozens of gold coins, big as Marukla's dirty little palm. Easter Sunday, the firstborn waits in the parlor, upright in her black gavai and headdress encrusted with stitched flowers and silver baubles. 2 or 3 suitors bring sweets, and the kitchen sister, Mirofora, her own gavai tattered, calls Marukla to help. But no quick step presses the wooden ladder. At midnight of the resurrection vigil, the village's newly decorated captain had gazed through candles rising and falling, making crosses of light. His silence drifted through chanting to the dark corner of the maiden's balcony. In one flicker, Marukla blossomed. The creaking boat lay in the water below, sailors at attention. She needed no moonlight on the footpath, carried nothing. Her letter arrives just after the New Year, as if among a row of sepia faces smiling onto the old China harbor. Marukla's house stands tall and spindly. Marukla, though still frail, no longer coughs. The captain taught her to clasp a silver chain and pearl vial around their favorite dog's neck. It skitters by itself among the pagodas, scampering back with bundles of herbs in the twinkling of an eye. Cousins, summer 1978. In grandmother's house, we stack suitcases on the wooden table and chairs just inside the one door. Leaning from the wall, the inscrutable black and white faces of the dead stare past us. On the shelf by the radio, a china jar. Inside it, a tarnished collar. The soufas awaits like an open tabernacle. Old mattresses are rolled up on it, each covered by its woolen blanket embroidered with initials we can't decipher. A plastic doll, wearing a pink and yellow sacofustano, half winks into space, warding off evil spirits. Shanghai Massacre, 1927. From Admiral's quarters on ship, Marukla's husband commands 6 officers with a sedan chair and ordinary shipmen for her trunks. They run, swords clanging against buckles. Inside the northern city wall, the herbalist gulps hard, fills wax-lined boxes with hardy seedlings and herbs from Xiaokunshan Mountain. Guttural locks snap shut. 3 jostling alleys away, the shriveled footbinder hisses. That dirty foreigner's kitchen girl, no lotus feet. Jewels tinkle in the white curls climbing to the peaks of her head. Racing from window to window in their narrow latticed casements, Marukla's little dog yelps himself hoarse. His silver and pearl collar jingles. On the topmost floor, Marukla nestles silks and trinkets in trunks. Takes them out again. Little bells ring strangely in her ears. Simera, all is well. Charming son, olakala. Wild barking echoes from the corridor below. On her slow descent downstairs, Marukla lingers, caresses her gleaming ebony chairs. Thugs force the black door, grab the kitchen maid's short black hair. Quick hiss of a warm knife. Blood splatters the tiles. Boots receding, coarse hands twitch, still wet from rinsing the plucked chickens. Arriving at the threshold, the herbalist stumbles in the blood, leaves his crates and note on the table. Your native mountains will weaken you again. Remember me and live. His footsteps leave slaps of blood on the cobblestones behind him. Through the window, the sedan chair appears, bobbing ever closer. Marukla crouches by her maid. The bell of her heart tolls deeply through her flesh. Ektham votikos. Hold us, Lord. Dazzling sun today. Grata mastemo. This is the last piece of the suite. Cousins Summer, 1984. We worship in grandmother's little church, fresh painted in its stone courtyard. Candles over the centuries have left their shadowy crosses on the lintel. Within, icons glimmer like gold crowns in an old blackened mouth. Opposite the church, the one Café Neo and the only 2 grand houses. The first, closed for 100 years. The other, opened once every summer by a crumbling widow. Shuffling, toothless, in her faded kavai, she sweeps the dust from the square without a word, then lowers onto her knees and crawls across the flagstones to the gilded pews where she sits, eyes riveted to the floor, and prays. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kalliopy. That was really beautiful, also rich in detail. Really wonderful. Thank you for being here in the Prose Garden with us today, Kalliopy Paleos. Okay, now we're going to hear from Pamela Painter. She is the award-winning author of 5 story collections. Her stories appear in numerous journals and anthologies, have been included in 4 Norton anthologies, Best Microfictions, Best Short Fictions, and have received 4, count them, 4 Pushcart Prizes. Painter's stories have also been featured in NPR, YouTube, and staged by Word Theater in LA, London, and New York. Pam Painter.
Thank you, Francine and Meg, for doing this series. They really are wonderful stories that you always line up with the readers. Anyway, so I'm going to start and read a story called Molting. Molting. It is time to tell my husband that I am leaving him. Perched beside him on our sagging couch, I describe the molting of a lobster, how lobsters bend double and then back out of their shell. He finally peers at me in disbelief, but he doesn't lower the volume of the Patriots game. I suggest that he needs to give up 5 minutes of his special sports TV and go to YouTube to witness the astonishing process of a lobster molting. I say lobsters could be immortal because they just keep molding as they grow larger. But what happens is that their shells get too large and they don't have the energy to keep on molding, to keep on shivering, shucking out of their larger and heavier shell. My shoulders are lighter already as I tell my husband, I'm backing out, I'm leaving, I'm molting while I can. So I highly recommend that everybody go to YouTube and just, it is an astonishing sight, these lobsters molding. The next story I'm going to read is Outside Our Neighbor's House. So much goes on outside there. Oops. Oh dear. I don't know. I'm sorry. Outside our neighbor's house. So much goes on outside their house that it's a wonder they have energy left over for what goes on inside, as their backyard becomes a multi-generational playground where toddlers' playdates set the trampoline's rusted springs to screeching, culminating in tea parties with tiny plastic tables and overturned chairs, the lurid colors of candy, not complete without skinned knees and wailings, "I am going to tell," and accusations, "She hit me first," that bring a pissed off parent streaking through patio doors from whatever the hell they were doing. Then all too soon, teen pool parties blossom under a cloud of chlorine and a miasma of weed. Their water games of chicken coax the girls' boobs out of their skimpy two-piece suits, knees wrapped around the necks of clueless boys who rarely manage to get there any other way. And soon adult activities bring out the hors d'oeuvres and wives, lumpy under their one-piece suits, they never get wet, followed by husbands in wife-beater tees, husbands wishing they were teenagers again, splashing their squealing wives, wanting them wet when they want them. And in the background, punk rock drowns out rap, then segues into Joe Green as Cheez-Its, chips, and hot salsa are washed down with keg beer, tequila, and gin. And soon, right on time, smoking grills burn the bloody steaks and burgers, all this beneath strung-up lights, bestowing halos on strung-out guests no longer happy. In fact, so much happens outside the neighbor's house, you wouldn't think there's time left over for a drug overdose, a failed suicide, incest, even murder. But you would be wrong. And the last story I'm going to read is, I don't know, a strange one. They're all strange. Anyway, Noah Pratt writes a story. "Stories tell us who we are," Mrs. Marsden says to her fourth grader, Noah Pratt. Noah Pratt says stories are stupid. Pratt says he don't read stories. "Then write a story," Mrs. Marsden says. So Noah Pratt writes a story. Noah Pratt writes, "Fourth grade sucks." Noah Pratt writes, "Comfort rooms suck." Noah Pratt writes, "Mrs. Beamer's comfort sucks." Noah Pratt writes, "Call me Dungeon Master." Noah Pratt writes, "My DM friends live in my closet." Noah Pratt writes, "My DM friends protect me." Noah Pratt says, "This story is dumb." "Write how your DM friends protect you and what from," Mrs. Marsden says. Noah Pratt writes, "This story is not about me." Noah Pratt writes, "This story doesn't have any more stories." Noah Pratt puts an end at the end of this line. Noah Pratt says, "Read this story and die." Thank you.
Oh, wow. Wow. I thank you so much, Pam. Pamela Painter never disappoints, ever. I am just really smitten with these four stories that we've heard so far, and I think it's just only going to keep getting better, or it's how much better can it get? But now I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, the lovely Meg Pokrass, for the next four readers.
Thank you very much, Francine. Boy, those were amazing stories. So first up on my side of this event, Mikki Aronoff. Mikki Aronoff chases words in New Mexico, where she tries to write more while writing less. Hi, Mikki. Welcome.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Meg and Francine, for sponsoring this. And I'm just blown away by everybody's stories. I want to say that here and now because I'm crap at chat. It's that multitasking thing. And I'm having a bit of a deja vu because last night I dreamt I was getting on Zoom to read this story. And some guy I never saw before started vacuuming under my sofa, and I couldn't find the mute button. So I'll shut up and read now. Okay. I'm going to read one story that recently came out in Does It Have Pockets, called Why We Can't Lose Weight, which I'm sure everyone wants to know the answer to. Before there was arguing, there was peace. And before there was peace, there was war. And after the Second World War, there were feelings, some specific, some vague, all floating around the heads of those who had them, like cartoon balloons with words inside. And my parents argued back and forth, usually over pot roast and potatoes, that that's not the way it should be, that floating is not what feelings should do. They should stick to bodies, or more accurately, reside inside them, bumping against organs and bones. And it should be a finable offense for bodies to let go of them and let them be seen, or worse, heard. And I wondered, weren't those feelings? But of course, I kept quiet. Today we extrapolate about such things because that's fun to do. And we explain without saying how because reason doesn't count. That's why we can't lose weight. And we say this about everything, leaning back on our recliners with our calorie-controlled frozen dinners and dim the lights and wish for simpler times when our grandparents maintained simply that balloons are simply for floating and really not much else. And when one is tired of holding on to them, one can simply let go, along with all those newfangled fanciful ideas. But they did understand, since balloons seemed to be everybody's favorite topic, how it was reasonable to be drawn to the Hindenburg, like my mother and father, who by then were starting to express their feelings for airships, for each other, for painting and science, and for ideas about how we should all live and behave. Sometimes my parents resembled Miss America contestants, world peace their motto, starting at home, everyone greeting in apartment hallways, helping folks carry groceries upstairs. But they'd turn 3 times, spitting patooey, patooey, patooey when they saw balloons, which they remembered first fearing, then hating, though they hated the word hate. Eschew, they'd say with a lift of their chins. And because they were good at subtraction, they knew what they loved by what they renounced. So much evil abounding then as now, when we're all trying to lose weight, when it's something else we need to lose. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mikki. That was absolutely amazing. Such a beautiful longer piece and a gift to hear you read it. Thanks so much.
Strange, I know, but thank you.
Very
onward.
Very powerful ending. Oh my. All right. Well, next up is Jane Salmons. Jane Salmons lives in Shropshire in the UK. She has published a poetry collection, The Quiet Spy, Pin Drop Press 2022, and a poetry pamphlet, The Bridge, Office Press 2024, alongside numerous flash and microfiction stories. Jane's writing has been shortlisted for the Bath Flash Fiction Award and nominated for Best Microfiction, Best Small Fictions, and Best of the Net. She won the Pokrass Prize at the Flash Fiction Festival in 2022. Find out more at her website, janesalmonspoetry.co.uk. Welcome, Jane.
Oh, thank you, Meg. What an absolute honour to be here amongst such brilliant writers. Hi, everybody. It's evening here in the UK. So thanks, Francine and Meg, for inviting me. I'm going to read 2 fairly short micro-fiction pieces. And I just wanted to mention Meg and Lorette again, because both of these were written in workshops facilitated by either the 2 of them together or just Meg. And in fact, it was a couple of years ago, I think, where in a joint wonderful workshop led by the 2, where I first discovered flash fiction and kind of became hooked on it because I'd only written poetry up to that point. So this piece is an ekphrastic piece called Rat Race, and it was in response to a workshop, I think it was last year sometime, called Not Guilty. Can you remember that one, Meg and Lorette? And it was a series of artworks and prompts, but the theme was the pleasures and perils of our favourite indulgences. So this particular piece is inspired by a painting by a contemporary French surrealist artist. Her name is Agnes Bouloche. Forgive my pronunciation. And I'm really chuffed that it was published very recently in a new wonderful journal called Neither Fish Nor Fowl, which is, the editor is Jack Morris there at the journal. Rat Race. We, the rats, scurry from the dark, draughty cellar to ransack the pantry. We gorge on a truckle of stinking Bishop cheese, slurp our grey tongues through the velvety tiramisu in the cut glass bowls, guzzle a flagon of absinthe. Down in one, we chant, our quivering whiskers stained emerald green. Eyes blazing, we steal into the nursery. Let's play master and servant, we shout. A roll of the dice decides who rides atop the spotted dog on wheels. Footman and groom push and heave. Faster, faster, we scream. We whirl at breakneck speed across dazzling checkered floor. Faster, faster. Wallpaper clowns turn topsy-turvy. Bow-tied giraffes collide with top-hatted zebras. We collapse in a tangle of fur and claws, belly laugh until our tails whir. When the grandfather clock chimes midnight, we go berserk in the ballroom. We crash across the pianoforte's ivory keys, shrieking Beethoven's Fifth. Da-da-da-da. We thunder through the library, bellowing Baudelaire and Byron. We run amok in the conservatory, wreak havoc in the parlour. In Mistress's boudoir, we paint our lips scarlet, douse ourselves with musky scent, dress up in silk scarves, mink stoles, say, "Darling, you look divine in fuchsia pink." When dawn breaks, we scuttle down the spiral stairs to the scullery, take turns to gently lather and scrub each other's hairy backs. Foot massage? We ask. A trundle of wheels, whip crack, hooves on gravel. We slink back to our dingy hole, eyes burnt umber. Thank you. Okay, so my next microfiction, this is very recent, written last weekend actually, and this was in Meg's workshop again. And this one, this workshop was in tribute to and inspired to the late, great, wonderful David Lynch, his art, films and TV. So this one I've called Shrove Tuesday. It's a little bit gruesome and a bit weird, which you might expect with a piece inspired by David Lynch. Shrove Tuesday. What the flaming hell is the cat dragged in now? Dad snaps, looking up from his plate of pancakes. Mum's ear, I say. Cutlery clattering, I rush to prise open Vincent's jaws. Vincent is our orange tabby. Mum named him after the artist. She loves those paintings, the swirling stars, black cypresses. Mum's ear is small, waxy and white, like the inside of a horse chestnut. The lobe is pierced with a pearl stud. I asked to have my ears pierced for my birthday. Mum said, I don't see why not. Over my dead body, Dad said, what are you, a Nancy boy? I took Mum's ear carefully into the pocket of my Wranglers and skulked back to the table. Dad makes a weird growling noise and slowly cracks his knuckles. Suddenly, he smacks his hands together like a thunderclap. Vincent scarpers. We eat the rest of our meals in silence. I wash up, feed Vincent, clean out his litter tray, then cut corned beef sandwiches for Dad's packed lunch. He's on early shift at the abattoir. I can't sleep because I can't stop thinking about Mum, vanished in a puff of smoke. Dad's out at darts, so I sneak into their bedroom, slip off my pajamas, and slip into Mum's silk dragon kimono. I turn on the radio, and as I slow dance to Dusty Springfield, I hold Mum's ear close to my lips and whisper, "Stay with me, please." Dad's car pulls up on the drive. I pop Mum's ear into my mouth. It's chewy, but surprisingly sweet, like a dried apricot. I glance into the oval mirror on the dressing table. A beautiful woman in pearl earrings smiles back. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So exciting to hear you read those pieces, and you put the reader in quite a spell. I mean, you are fantastic. It was so great to hear you read. Thank you so much for being here. All right, next up is Lorette C. Luzajik. Lorette C. Luzajik reads, writes, edits, and publishes, and teaches small fictions. She's the founding editor of the Ekphrastic Review and the Mackinac. She's also an award-winning visual artist with collectors in 40 countries so far. She is moved by art museums, ancient artifacts, beads and rings, and cats. Welcome, Lorette.
Thank you so much, Meg. And thank you, Francine. And it's just great to see all of my brilliant friends here and some new faces. It's really great to be here. This first piece of two was inspired to some years ago, my visit to Santa Muerte in Mexico City. It's called Death in Tepito. And just like that, you are there again, pushing your way through the yellow tents of Tepito's market. You cannot stay away from Mexico. It's like skydiving or popping amphetamines. It is life at the crescendo. These stalls of towering flowers, these heaps of chintzy, absurd toys, are a labyrinth connecting the Centro Histórico with the no-go barrio. Here, heads roll, if they're lucky. At the north and east of the squalor of caged dogs and baby birds, past baskets of chipotle crickets and Nepalis, past skyscraper shoeboxes of wrestling masks and Diablito figurines, you slip into the streets. You shake your head curtly whenever a twin set of stony eyes latch onto yours. You aren't looking for blow or a guerrilla machine gun for a steal. You have no list of enemies you want dead. But you are looking for death after all, and haven't you always been? Tonight you are one of her pilgrims. You follow the others past the shady men whose faces are covered like old Western train bandits. Toss paper money into an upturned cup for an ancient mestiza missing both legs. She hands you a bouquet of orange and violet chrysanthemums. Armed with sacred offerings, you are now part of the procession. 1,000 candles flicker as the river of humans moves toward her shrine. You approach the church of Santa Muerta, a humble hole that is now showered in purple and gilt fire. You weren't expecting to see glory in the grim one's gaunt visage, but you were hoping for something, a glimpse at least of what might come after. But the colors in her aura are festoons of the living. There is nothing there after all, only sockets emptied of sight and a grinning rope of clattering Denton keys. And the second piece is called The Minotaur. The painter's clients and acquaintances might be surprised, and especially his lovers, how tender he had been as a child. The earliest photographs reveal a small boy with an impish spirit already showing in his eyes. There is confidence and determination too. Some children are born already knowing who they are and what they want, and he was one of them. He knew by the time he could talk that he would be a greater painter than even his father. But there is a softness there too, and it makes him almost pretty. You can see it even more in the face of his younger sister, who is the spitting image of him in feminine form. But the boy's innocence was irreversibly shattered on that precarious ledge between child and adulthood. Going to Mass was the tradition for every Spanish family on Sundays. At 13, his father took him afterwards to another kind of church. He was initiated into the pleasures of the flesh by a woman twice his age. That same season, the young man watched his beloved little sister suffer the agonies of Christ, coughing for months as she grew thinner. Doctors came and went from her little room, but they couldn't save her. The boy was inconsolable when they took her tiny body away forever. That was 20 years ago, but he relives this helplessness and fury all over again with Eva. The first woman that he truly loved refused to marry him. She understood him too well, perhaps, and knew that his art would be his only wife. He loves Eva even more, and though she loves him too, she too refused the vows she knew he could not keep. Like a cruel replay of the past, she coughed through their happiest years together, not diphtheria, but cancer of the throat. Her bloody handkerchiefs littered his room alongside his turpentine rags and hundreds of canvases. The painter shares his pain with his good friend Gertrude in a letter. Life has been hell, he writes, in and out of hospitals, and then after. My poor Eva is dead. This has been a great sorrow. She was so good to me. In his loneliness there, in those brief moments between Eva and his next conquest, he thinks about the secret pact he had made so long ago with the authorities in the heavens. If only his beautiful sister would live, he would lay down his brushes for her and give up his glory. There was nothing he loved more than painting. Creativity was his divine gift. It moved inside of him like thunder, like a raging river, but he would give it all up if the Lord would renew her to life. His sacrifice was inadequate, or perhaps it fell on deaf ears. Bargaining for mercy with his very soul had been futile. Now, as then, he understands there is no benevolent force, no personal love, no mercy in the mystery of fate. It is every man for himself. All right, then. He would be the omnipotent one, the creator and destroyer, the greatest artist who ever lived. I, king, he had once signed a painting. In that moment, he had vowed to become the greatest artist, Picasso, as epic and brutal as God. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorette. Absolutely beautiful readings, banquet of poetic images and such emotionally powerful stories. Thank you so much. And it was a delight to have you with us. Next up is Louella Lester. Louella is a writer, photographer in Winnipeg, Canada, author of Glass Bricks at Bay Press 2021, contributing editor at New Flash Fiction Review, and is included in Best Microfiction 2024. Her writing and photos appear in a variety of journals and anthologies. Welcome, Louella Lester.
Hi. You know, the benefit of going last is I can honestly say I enjoyed everybody's readings. And thank you to the audience. And thank you to Meg and Francine. I love Prose Garden, whether I'm reading or just in the audience. And I've put my book information in the chat because I'm always feeling bad for my long-suffering publisher that I'm horrible at PR. So I've done it, and you're witnesses to that. Okay, I write all kinds of stuff, a variety of styles, genres, micro, flash, prose poetry, CNF, but for years, I've been writing a series of stories called the Lily Stories, and about Lily, who grew up along Lake Winnipeg, funnily enough, like I did, and from when she's in the womb all the way up to a young adult. And I was writing them long before I even knew what flash and microfiction was. And but I just liked writing in those short pieces. And so I was thrilled when I discovered the Flash world. And so I'm going to read a couple of Lily stories today, I decided. And I'm going to start with one where Lily is about, I don't know, she's probably about 8. And this story was published in the Great Gooseberry Pie. And thank you, Jeff. And actually was nominated for Best Small Fiction. So that was exciting. And it's called Tangled Up. Mothball scent overwhelms the hallway even before Great Auntie Nell actually sweeps in. And Lily wishes it wasn't their turn to have her over for Christmas dinner. Auntie's wearing a fur stole made of 4 dead mink, heads still attached and dangling, while in one blue-veined hand she grips a plastic bag of browning tangerines and a net bag holding a few gifts. She drops both bags on the table and bends to give her youngest niece a dry lip peck on the cheek, making Lily's head whirl. Because there are eyes in those mink heads. Not fake shiny doll eyes, but real ones, shriveled into the dead sockets like dry raisins. They open Auntie's presents before dinner, and when Lily tears into the gift's wrapper, the word spirograph is revealed, and she's able to giggle again, until one of her sisters points out that it's only a worthless packet of refill paper, not the actual drawing toy she's been longing for. It's so hard to even say thank you. At dinner, Lily finds it difficult to eat any food, being seated right next to Auntie, who's still wearing the mink heads. And because halfway through the meal, Auntie starts coughing without covering her mouth, then pulls out a huge bottle of cough syrup and unscrews the cap to take a long swig. Lily's about to hand over a tablespoon and tell the old ladies swigging's not allowed when she spots Mum shaking her head, eyes wide above a big no shape that's shaping her mouth. I grew up in a little community that there's a lot of mink ranches, so I know what I'm talking about there. And then the second piece that it's more recently done. I've been taking the junior high Lily stories and I'm working on putting together a flash novella if I ever get that done. And so this is one of the stories near the beginning of that. And Lily would be about 11 and it's 1969. A welcome surprise. Lily and Penny are standing beside Summer Auntie's picnic table, waiting for Sid to join them. Various other cousins are running about playing tag. On the table, plates hold remnants of waffles and blueberries, soaked in honey of all things. Lily's stomach growls, reminding her that she hasn't eaten breakfast. Sid bursts through the kitchen door, then the girl, who's here to help Summer Auntie with younger grandchildren, slips out behind him. Lily's mouth hangs open for a while before she notices and clamps it shut. Bliss must be 16 or 17, about the same as Lily's oldest sister, Valerie, but she's different. She has an afro, a big one, some thick frizzy sections slump like weeping willow branches, round granny glasses perched on her nose. She's wearing a multicolored dress that sweeps the ground. And you can see an orange bikini through the thin material when she moves from shade to light. Bliss, says Sid. These are my cousins, Penny and Lily. They live here year-round, just over there through the woods. 2-inch gold hoop earrings shift and catch on Bliss's shoulders as she turns her head. Hey, nice to meet you. Cool t-shirt, Lily. Did you tie-dye it yourself? Ah, Lily looks down to remind herself of what she's wearing. Yeah, I did. Groovy. I love the pattern, and blue's my favorite color. We're going swimming in a bit. You girls want to come? Bliss piles the sticky plates on a tray and takes them into the house. Isn't she cool? Penny asks. Let's go get our bathing suits. Sid, we'll be right back. But Sid doesn't even seem to notice that Penny's talking. Over the next 2 weeks, Lily spends most of her free time at Summer Auntie's. Bliss runs an extension cord across the yard and plugs in a portable record player. She shows Lily and the others the latest dances while they listen to the bands that will be playing at Woodstock this summer. Jefferson Airplane with Grace Slick singing White Rabbit. Jimi Hendrix making his guitar scream Purple Haze, and Janis Joplin, her voice like gravel, wailing Summertime. Bliss confides that she won't be here too long, only until she's saved some money so she can hitchhike to Toronto to meet some friends who are driving down to the festival. Lily follows Bliss everywhere, asking questions. Lily knows many things. She knows when and where to find pussy willows, buds crawling up marsh branches like caterpillars in the spring. She knows how to avoid triple threat poison ivy leaves when searching for delicate lady slipper blooms. She can recognize that unique shade of green in the trees that signals an electric storm's arrival. But she also knows that a few weeks with Bliss isn't enough time to learn all the other things she'll need to know for junior high. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Louella. I love your Lily stories. It's even better to hear you read them aloud. They're so
Thanks.
life real. Yeah, and your period details really bring it all to life.
Thank
What a great way to end this night of wonderful stories. Thank you so much. And thanks, everyone. I thought all the stories were amazing, just wonderful. Thanks for being here. I'll turn it back to you, Francine.
Thank you, Meg. So I'll be turning off the recording in just a minute, but we can hang out in the Zoom room if anybody wants to stick around and chat. I want to thank our readers tonight, Elan Barnahama, Chelsea Stickle, Kalliopy Paleos, Pam Painter, Mikki Aronoff, Jane Salmons, Lorette Luzajik, and Louella Lester. You were all wonderful. And it only really served to underscore how even in the worst times, or what we perceive as the worst times, we have this. We have the beauty of our writing, of sharing our writing in this wonderful, we have this wonderful writing community. It's like, I think we all feel kind of blessed. And I know maybe I'm speaking for other people, but I truly believe that you all feel that way. And just like if we can just hold on to that, that no one can take that away from you, ever. Okay? So thank you again for spending your afternoon/evening with us at the Prose Garden. I'm Francine Witte in New York City, and thank you to my co-host, Meg Pokrass in the UK. And drive safely. We'll see you soon.